So I had done this first video on judgment, discussing the use of judgment and employing judgment to make wise choices in life, use it as a feedback loop in terms of our social interactions as well as navigating through our life situations. And at the same time, I had discussed how judgment can also be counterproductive when it comes in the way of love, when we tend to label people or life situations. And the very energy of labeling doesn't help us. So all in all, the question I had posed was, is judgment relevant? Is it useful? Is it productive? Or is it unproductive? And how do we go about neutralizing the unproductive aspects while keeping the productive aspects alive? So this is a follow-up video which I had promised, but this background is enough in case you didn't hear the previous one. So I would like to make it clear that a lot of our issues or a lot of our misunderstandings are born from inappropriate use of language. And if we can give specific connotations to the words, then language becomes more effective. So let us look at the ways in which the word judgment is typically connoted. Or to make it simpler, let's look at it this way, that there are two forms of judgment, one which is objective and another which is subjective. The objective form of judgment is useful. And there are at least two words that I can think of. One is perceptiveness, another is discernment. So if we are judging for the purpose or from the need of perceptiveness, need to be perceptive, or need to discern, or for being perceptive, or for discerning, then that judgment is healthy judgment and we want lots of it in our lives. We need that in order to decide what food to eat, what food to avoid, what people to hang out with, which people not to hang out with. It is essentially what we call viveka in Adhyatma. Nirakshira Vibheda, that which distinguishes between milk and water, the quality that Hamsa is supposed to have. So that sense of discrimination is also judgment, and that is purely objective. Now we also hear about this whole narrative around the problem with judgment, and then we confuse the two, We want to give away judgment at a blanket level, even when we are objectively seeing some situations or some people as unhealthy for us. Simply because we don't want to label them with the energy of judgment, we choose to avoid seeing that. That's just some form of whitewashing. Doesn't work. What is this judgment that is often bashed? It is the judgment which is subjective, which involves elements of what I call emotional investment. So if you are emotionally invested into your decision, that decision by itself carries the energy, or into your labeling. If you are emotionally invested, calling it good or bad, calling it names, feeling something right about it or something deeply wrong about it. And this is not just intuition or instinct which is relatively pure, but this is feeling. This is decisions which are embedded by feverish emotions, or worldviews which are embedded by feverish emotions. That kind of judgment is what separates a man from man. That kind of judgment is the deal breaker for love. That kind of judgment makes life itself difficult for the person who is judging. And that kind of judgment doesn't allow harmony in relationships. So knowing that judgment comes in various forms, and then between these two extreme spectrums or two sides of the spectrum, which I made fairly obvious, there is an entire gray area, and that's where we have to learn to navigate through that area, understanding whether this is a worthwhile form of judgment which I should keep alive in me, deeply objective, or is this some level of subjective judgment wherein I am invested emotionally and I have a strong opinion around it. The former needs to be retained, the latter needs to be dropped. As simple as that. All the best with applying this one.